Three, two, one, ghost. Hey, everybody. Welcome to 3, 2, 1, Ghost. I'm your host with the silent G, Kyle, and as always, by tradition, by design, always joined by my co-host, Natalie. Hey, Natalie. How are you?
Did you almost say co-ghost?
I almost said co-ghost. I should have just went.
You should have just went with it.
I
I'm
know. Oh
good.
my
I'm
gosh.
good.
It's good to hear. Hey, everybody. We are talking about yet another bonkers Jeffrey Combs movie. I feel like that's a little redundant to say. I feel like he himself brings the bonkers to any movie he's in, whether it be, Re-Animator or From Beyond or Would You Rather or I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Oh, Jesus. Oh, I
We're
love it.
we're
But
going through his movies too fast, I think.
maybe too fast. Luckily, he's got a pretty thorough resume. Maybe we
Yeah,
just
he
start
does.
watching all the Star Trek season too.
Oh
Maybe
yeah.
maybe this just becomes a Star Trek podcast. I don't know. Um,
Big
but
shift.
we're going to be focusing on one of his more notable roles, that being his return playing Herbert West 5 years after 1985's Re-Animator in 1990's, if you're following me with the math, Bride of Re-Animator. That first movie is fucking wild. And
Yeah.
this one almost gets me. What do you think?
You don't think it's as wild?
It's not certainly not as rapey as the first one.
It still does have a little bit of grabbing happening, but not nearly as creepy as the first one. I think what they did was they were like, what is all the weird shit that we forgot about in that first film? And then they just packed it into this one, it feels like.
100%.
So it's just a different
Um,
weird.
so again, of course, we're talking about a sequel, the direct sequel to Reanimator. So as far as, well, I'm going to use returning survivors in a pretty broad context because these movies are a lot about things coming back to life and being very angry. Um,
Yeah.
but we do have sorely, sorely missing Barbara Crampton, unfortunately, in this one, but we
Hmm.
do have returning buddies. Uh, um,
Buddies
Jeffrey
feels like a
Combs.
strong word.
I guess there's
Or not
gotta be.
strong enough.
Yeah, given like I don't know what their fucking relationship is, but
We'll get
we
to
do
it.
have we do have Herbert West and Dan Kane coming back from the first one, played by original stars Jeffrey Combs and Bruce Abbott, who is I think it's the same haircut he had in the first one, right? Do you keep that just the whole time?
I think it's a little bit longer. It actually
Mm,
feels oddly more 80s in this one, even though it's the 90s. Like he flipped it, but he's still looking fine as hell. So good for him.
As we learned from this movie, the tissue that had been reanimated in the first movie never really fully dies, I guess. I
Yeah, I
don't
don't like that
know.
at all. I'm like, how conscious are these body parts?
Enough to qualify David Gale as a returning survivor. Uh,
Yeah.
is Dr. Hill, who
Dr. Hill's the best.
um kind of the worst in the first one, kind of the best in this one.
I just I just really appreciate David Gale's commitment to this role. Like he's doing a lot for being just a head.
Yeah, just a head and a couple bat wings.
Yeah.
He does does a lot with his teeth and his mouth.
Yeah.
I don't
Smart.
know. I mean, I guess, like that's how you experience the world. Well, you are in second, I suppose so. But um
Hmm.
this movie, unlike Reanimator, unlike From Beyond. Uh, this movie is not directed by Stuart Gordon, but is instead directed by Brian Usna,
Mhm.
who was a producer on both of those movies that I just mentioned. So,
Oh,
you
that
know,
makes sense. Okay.
so yeah, you're still keeping it the family, right?
It
You
still has
still
a like the vibe is still right. Like there's not very
100%.
many sequels that carry a vibe and like the feeling right and still come up with something a little different.
One thing additionally, unlike the first one, is uh, there is no theatrical release for this one. This is direct to
Yeah,
video, and the rest of the movies in the series from here out will be.
that makes sense.
I really feel like being born in '87, I wish I was born just a few years earlier to like really jump in that golden age of straight to video horror.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a lot of it was really centralized in like the mid to late '80s and '90s. Um,
hmm
then I feel like you know, really didn't get that opportunity to latch on to, going renting those movies and watching that kind of shit. Um,
There
uh,
was probably, I mean, this is me just making up things out of thin air, but I feel like at that time, like, unless it was like a bigger director, probably a lot of horror didn't make it to the theater.
I mean, they kept putting those fucking Friday the 13th movies and Nightmare on Elm Street's out, but unless I
Those are
guess you
big.
had,
Those are big boys.
and by big, quote big unquote,
The
like
biggest.
those they didn't even make that much money, like just enough to cover a cheap production cost, but I do
Yeah,
think it was
which is
diminishing
enough.
returns even with those franchises,
Mhm.
towards the end. That's why we're like, hey, fuck, that's why we gotta fucking make Freddy fight Jason. You gotta figure something out. I don't know. Gotta put
Yeah.
what's her face from not Beyonce. I'm sorry, and I'm sure she gets this all the time. Kelly Rowland. So this movie also stars uh, Kathleen Kinmont. You've got Claude Earl Jones, no relation to the recently deceased James Earl Jones.
I was
Um,
wondering that.
yeah, well, they don't look similar either. Claude Earl Jones plays Lieutenant Chapman.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so you also have Fabiana Udenio. I hope I pronounced that right. Do you remember where she's from?
I remember her from Austin Powers.
That's probably where she's most famous from, is a lot of vagina from Austin
Yeah.
Powers.
Yeah.
So I watched that movie so much as a kid, and it was like what? So I
So
was 10.
inappropriate.
I was 10 when that movie came out, and that was like perfectly geared to a 10-year-old boy's sense of humor.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
100%. So
Yeah.
there you go. I don't think it's the first time I've even brought up Austin Powers.
It's not.
No, I remember. I get it. I remember. I was talking about the sequel. I forget which episode, but it's not important. Um, so this movie, I think this is my second time watching it. The first time I think was with you earlier this
Yeah.
year, was it not?
Yeah, that's true. So it was only my second time watching it as well.
Hmm. Right, because we had watched Re-Animator to prepare for recording the first one, which was like what, like January, February. I can't remember off
Yeah.
the top of my head, but y'all can scroll down and figure that out. But the we were like, we have to fucking watch the second one, right?
Yeah. We I think we even said that on the episode. We were like, should we continue this? Should we
Yeah,
keep going and asked, should we continue this? No one said yes or suggested it, but we just kept going.
let's just fucking
Here we
go.
are.
Yeah, I love it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think this movie's fun. It has a lot of fun elements. It,
Hmm
in some ways, goes as hard, if not harder, than the first one.
hmm
Even with, I think, a lower budget, but I can't say.
It's got
Uh,
some really fun practical effects.
very fun practical effects. Absolutely. Effects done by Screaming Mad George as
Yeah,
he
I
is.
saw that in the credits and I was like, huh.
Yeah, hell yeah. He is. I has done a number of things. I mean, fuck. Uh, so he's done a bunch of very notable special effects. I mean, he's worked on, Big Trouble in Little China. He's worked
Mm.
on Predator, Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Wikipedia says most notably in Nightmare on Elm Street 4, that cockroach scene, which whenever we get to that movie,
Oh,
Nightmare on
yeah.
Elm Street 4 has my favorite deaths. So
It
it may
does.
be my
Yeah, it's
favorite
so
movie,
good.
but oh my God, they're all
It's
so
got the
good.
best deaths. They're so fun. Yeah.
100%. And that cockroach one is a standout amongst the standouts. So let's
Yeah. That's nightmare fuel for sure.
can I please humbly suggest Screamin' Mad George, an industry legend award?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. um, Want to hop right into this movie?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Um, so this movie starts from the very beginning, just letting you know Dr. Hill is available. He is awake, and
Yeah. Is it
boy,
just, he's there? Yeah. I was like, oh, okay.
I've got a grudge. I'm upset,
Yeah. He's fucking
and
pissed.
yeah, he's pissed. So he's like, I'm coming for you, West. I'm not done with you. I'm gonna settle this score, right? Um,
Hmm.
Without limbs, who needs them? I'll figure it out. And he does, kind of. Oh, I don't know. But then we pop over to Peru, of all places, where
Uh-huh.
there's some sort of war going on. And we're introduced to our guys, Herbert West and Dan Kane, who are it's like MASH, like an episode of MASH, but like with them. And
Yeah, it is.
you're, I guess maybe they really needed doctors because they were like, we will literally take anybody, and
Any
they
doubt.
did.
Yeah,
They did.
why are they still able to practice medicine
Oh,
after what happened in the first movie?
I mean, I would get going to Peru in the middle of like complicated wartime and saying like, hey, I can do some light touch surgery. I can figure it out. And being like, all right, cool, you're on board, man. You're part of the effort. Let's go.
Yeah.
And or it's like, hey, you got your some sort of medical education in the United States at a
Hmm.
theoretically renowned university. I don't know.
Hmm.
So sure, hey, we need you. Let's all hands on deck. It's an all hands on deck sort of situation when you're talking about Peruvian Civil War. And but I'm more flabbergasted by how they're able to just come back to the same hospital they were at in the
That,
first movie and get their fucking jobs back there.
yeah, that makes even less sense. At least in Peru, it's like maybe people don't know who they are. Like it's 1991. We don't have quick ways to check credentials. So we desperately need doctors in a time of war. But then they go right back to what is, I forget what the hospital is. It's like a university hospital. But yeah, they go right back to that. And everybody knows their history and there's missing body parts and shit. And they're just like, they're cool. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't even worry about it. Um, the movie does make a point to tell you that it is 8 months after the events of the first movie
So fresh.
and 10,000 miles away, just to let you know
Hmm.
that Peru is a long way away from New England area of the United
Yeah.
States. So, um, they're trying to do emergency surgery on this dude that is in a serious situation, right? And I just fucking the way Jeffrey Combs and West just approaches every every dying body is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And the same opportunity. It's not even like it's and that opportunity really is how can I sew something weird to this? And
Yeah.
let's see if it gets in.
Well, and it's the
And it
same
always does.
exchange. It's the same exchange too. Like it's not like they both just have the same idea. Like it's Herbert West saying like, I think we're gonna have to call it. Let's inject him with some shit. And Dan's like, oh, gee, gosh, I don't know. You're crazy. What are you thinking? And then he'll say like one more really convincing thing, give him like a nudge, and he's like, all right, get that serum in him. Let's do this. Like, how bad could it be?
It's not even convincing. He just
No.
yeah, it just and I get the idea, not even just from this beginning scene, but later on too, especially with what's her name, Gloria. Um,
Hmm.
West does not care. Like he comes in to see someone dying, and he's like, he has no interest in saving. He's like,
No.
no, I'm gonna just, just say, oh yeah, 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 gotta clamp the valve here, and gotta hold on to this clavicle and turn here. Oh man, oh geez, bleeding. We
Gee
gotta
golly
call it.
gosh.
Oh geez. Well, now that we've got this fresh corpse, we got to
You gotta start taking parts off, all the ones that are good.
yeah, let's cut off the good ones, show them to a dog.
Yeah, the only literally the only reason why he's even checking anyone's vitals and like doing all the things that doctors do is so that he can be like, okay, we've got healthy hands and feet. Let's take note of that. Like liver's no good. Okay. Like he's just taking inventory almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the second that this guy that's on this table in this tent that they're in is dead, he's just like, yeah. So let's inject him. Let's figure it out. Don't even worry about it. Um, we're also introduced to his pet iguana. I miss it. I think he explains it later on. Something about like iguana juice being like good for brain tissue. I don't know.
Yeah, I never understood how the iguana factored in, except for that he's done like weird experiments on his pet.
Yeah, which I don't like. There is,
No,
unfortunately, hey, all trigger alert. There's some
a lot of
uh
pet violence.
iguana and dog violence in this one. Um, you are also introduced to allegedly she's a journalist, but I don't know if I got this from the movie, but I got this from the Wikipedia. But you do have
Mm.
Francesca, um, who pops in, and Dan, ever the romantic. It's like Francesca. Like every time, as soon as Dan is in a room with a different woman, he
Mhm.
falls in love with her.
That's the love of his life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he goes all fucking in, whether it is Gloria or whether it is the
Meg.
just the heart of Meg, or
Yeah.
whether
Just
it
just
is
that
a
one last part.
Frankenstein monster, or whether it's, Francesca just creeping on how soft her skin is and shit.
He's a man of romance. You know, what can he do?
He's especially, yeah, with those sweaters and that outfit he's got going on. I love that and that haircut.
All
I
of his
love it.
outfits are great.
Yeah. I'm like, is he dumb? Is he crazy? I don't know. But like, you need to have somebody that's just that like airhead fucking dumb to just
He's
be manipulated that easy by
he's
West, you know?
book smart, emotionally dumb, a hopeless romantic, and
Oh,
super hunky.
we all know that's what the audience wanted, right?
Hmm. I have a lot of thoughts about Dan and the ladies in his life,
Yeah,
as I did the first time around.
I love it. So real quick before we pop into, you know, getting back to the United States, um, West gives his whole spiel about like, hey, we thought it was like just the brain that gets, reanimated and shit, but turns out I can fucking put the serum in all sorts of different things and all sorts of limbs, and they'll just start flipping and flopping. Watch me go. Trust me. Like, let me just stab this dude and see what happens. And then, lo and behold, guess what? Goes back to and gets angry. And then you also have that other soldier that I guess is on the other side, clearly, because he wants to kill Dan.
Hmm.
Um, comes in and gets all aggro and shit too. They fight. I think Herbert kills him, stabs Dan, but it doesn't. you never hear anything else about that stab wound he gets
No, he was fine.
in the beginning. It just works out. I mean, Herbert's a thing. They really do love each other in a weird way.
Yeah, they feel very
Mhm.
like codependent on each other.
I think so. As much as Herbert tries to play it cool, like he doesn't.
Oh no, he needs Dan.
I mean, he just needs someone cute to look at and nod and say, "You did a good job, Dr. West.
Yeah.
Don't even worry about it."
And I mean, it can't
So,
hurt to have an extra set of hands.
yeah. I love this whole thing about how Herbert West is like, no, this is the perfect place for us to be. We're gonna get fresh corpses all the time. And then the second like someone pops in, they're just like, oh yeah, no, let's go home.
Yeah.
Don't even worry about it. And then we cut to the credits, which is very similar to the opening credits in the first one.
hmm Doesn't hit as hard as the first one, but it works.
The theme song is about the same. Um, now it doesn't. It just sounds like a little more. Trying to see who did the music. Richard Band. Um, well, like, obviously, just like the first one, that main theme is kind of it's just a ripoff of Psycho music,
hmm
right? Something about this one, maybe just even being later, like 1990s, so sounding more 1990s music. I don't know,
They
but
added like a softness to it, like that little like romantic like melody that they play when he's with Francesca.
mhm.
So I think they kind of like doubled down on that.
And then even the instrumentation on the main theme, where it sounds like almost like a little playful, so it's like almost as if like Psycho, but like in a toy store or a candy factory, you know? So it was like very like dun, 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 but it was like
Yeah. Just
more,
prepping us for all the kooky, zany things that'll happen next.
yeah. Apparently they're just allowed to get their jobs back in this hospital. I didn't even think they were necessarily even employed to begin with, but they were grad students, like medical
Mhm.
students at this hospital. So after everything that happened in that first one, like they're just like, not only are y'all coming back, which is like there's like no question. There's like nobody's ever even like interrogated them. Like they all just let the whole thing go. I am
Hey, Herbert West says that he was interrogated, that he gave information to the cops. So he did make a statement.
you've got fucking Dan just in love again, talking to a patient who made it clear that her head is the only thing that's healthy. The
hmm
rest, for some reason, undisclosed reason, not so much. Um, as soon as
Feels
she
so
says,
weird.
yeah, but I know it's awful, and he gets even worse later on when
Yeah.
she's like saying, you know, my head's the only thing that feels good or whatever. Then just fucking, well, Jeffrey Combs like fucking smirks up and he's like, oh, huh,
You read about that?
what singular organ? Let me take a look over here, huh? Let me your head doesn't feel good. And he just kind of slinks
Yeah.
away like such a fucking creep. They're both two different types of creep, you know.
Yes. Yes, they are. I think we talked about this in the first one too, like there are different levels of creepiness, but the body language that Jeffrey Combs serves as Dr. West, like that pompous posture that he has, like exactly what you described of when he's talking about her head being healthy, that just does it for me. That is exactly why I love him so much. Like
Uh,
that that level of acting is just so good. Just the way he holds a notepad even.
we're also introduced um to Dr. Graves, who works in pathology and is a
Who's
kind of
also a weird
the
creep.
morgue. I just love, granted, the only two examples I have right now are Dr. Graves and William Bloodworth, but I love the names for fucking these these morticians.
Yeah, that's a great last name.
Love that. But you have an introduction to him who is like overseeing like the morgue area. Um, also is like experimenting on a bat, I guess.
Yeah. I
Because
that
why?
doesn't seem like it would be allowed, like for,
No. Sanitary
just
reasons?
yeah, that's what I was looking for, sanitary reasons. Exactly.
Yeah. So, um, you're also introduced to, rather, uh, Lieutenant Chap,
Hmm.
who I guess so. The police gave up on this whole thing, uh, even though there's still like a closet of police evidence that's at the hospital that anyone can get into at any given time. Um, but you do have this lieutenant who shows up and talks to Dr. Graves,
He's still poking around.
still poking around. He's like, I still got a little bit of a grudge. Yeah, you're going to learn that the grudge is actually a little more personal than you
Hmm.
think. Um, so he's talking to Dr. Graves. They go into, well, no, no. First he's carrying around like a fucking, like a Macy's shopping bag that with stuffed newspaper that has this fucker's head inside it. It's he's got Dr. Hill's head that
Yeah,
from the
that's
first movie
weird.
that he says like, ah, yeah, it's fine on the side of the road. What can you do? But man, this is not decomposed one bit. It's been like 8 months. Look at this head. Looks pretty
Yeah,
good.
check this out.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's been like maintained really well. So I wrapped it in newspaper and threw it in a, fucking shitty paper bag and brought it to you. So clearly he's not that invested in the preservation, but
No,
there's still just a jar of just that Re-Animator juice just sitting in there, just like, ah, fuck it. Who cares?
not even in like refrigerated, even like I feel like something like that would need to be refrigerated.
Fucking Dr. Graves, as they're talking, he's like, yeah, yeah, so walk with me. I'll, just kind of show you everything that I'm doing. Let's go cremate this corpse real quick. And then he just offhand says, she's a ballerina. Just couldn't quite cut it. So, well, I didn't even mean that pun. So she
It was
did
good.
cut it. She cut both her
Yeah,
legs
she
off.
cut her feet off. That's brutal. Oof.
You're also introduced to this other dude. I forget his name, like the other like morgue assistant.
Yeah, he's damn it, I forget the what they're is he like an orderly?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like that's the closest thing I could think of, or like an errand boy, really, by the end of it. But
And they're just like, or where's her feet? And they're like, ah, yeah, we don't know. Actually, funny enough, now you mention it, limbs have kind of gone missing just kind of randomly,
yeah,
now that you
left and
bring it
right.
up. Yeah. And both, yeah, in this case, the left and the right,
Thank you.
Thank you. And, but don't even worry about it. I don't know. Shit goes missing all the time. Why would people want to steal limbs? Apparently, everybody has access to this closet with all of this evidence that has police tape, do not cross on it. Because you also have, excuse me, Dr. West who comes in. Uh, this
Mm,
this is a fun scene. Uh, well, first not first, he finds Megan's heart, which
hmm.
I'm like, was her heart
Just
cut out at the end of that last movie? Why is her heart separate from the rest of her body?
that's a great question. I wonder, is that, well, I guess we didn't actually see where Dan injected
Mm,
the the reanimating serum, so maybe he injected it straight into her heart, so they kept the heart to experiment on,
your
run
guess is as good
tests.
as mine. But sure, that tracks for me.
That
Um,
works.
he also,
He sticks that heart in his pocket.
yeah, puts the heart right in his pocket and also sees Dr. Hill's
Oh,
head wrapped
so
up.
good. Yeah, he's like, well, well, well.
Well, well, well. Looks like you're nothing but a dead head,
Yeah.
a no body.
I love when he says nobody. So
He
good.
he's such an asshole and so smarmy and sells it
Yeah.
so well.
Oh, he sells it so hard.
I laugh. See, even more so than the first one, he really leans into that hard. I really love the the sense of humor
Hmm.
that he just, even just more clearly just, exuberates and shit in that role. It's
Yeah.
really fun.
Well, it's fun seeing that scene and like thinking back to, in the first movie when he's in class listening to Dr. Hill and he doesn't like what he's saying and he just keeps breaking the number two pencils. Like, I just think about that level of sass, but now it's just directed at this lifeless head or what we think is a lifeless head. So it's just great that he's still like so just petty.
That's the whole thing with West is that he is always petty and jealous.
Mm-hmm.
Like whenever, like God forbid, Dan gets any credit for anything.
Yeah.
Because there are a number of times where, even the bride will say, like, you created me. And then Wes will be like, no, 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 no.
He's like,
I did this.
bitch.
I am your God, motherfucker.
Yeah.
No, 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 no.
Yeah.
Um, this man is beautiful, yes, but he is my muse and nothing more.
I love thinking of Dan as his muse.
What other purpose can he serve, right? He's like the magician's assistant.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Okay.
So Dan does learn that someone from the police is there and wants to speak to them. So,
And looks immediately guilty and panicked.
oh, 100%, because he absolutely is 100% guilty.
He should.
It's one thing I forgot to mention. This whole time that they were in, I know that they're renting because they mentioned that in the first one, and they're in the
Hmm.
same house, the same basement. They had rent that whole time they were in.
Maybe. They're doctors.
Are they though? I mean, yes, technically. Or are they, or are they scientists, Natalie?
I think he says something like that. Like he says something like we're doctors and he says like put on your scientist like hat or something along those lines.
I mean, yes, technically, barely, but yes, no, I paraphrased it much better.
You know what I mean?
He's like, put on your
Everyone knows what I'm
scientist
talking
hat,
about.
God damn it. Put on your scientist fedora.
Okay, maybe.
No, he says, Dan goes, we're doctors, and he's like, well, maybe stop being a doctor and start being a scientist. He says
Yes,
that.
that's what he says. Thank you. Good job. Good memory.
Put on your science hat.
Okay, how I justify them paying their rent is they say that they're living in like a home that's on a graveyard that was like for the groundskeeper. So maybe that's like they're supposed to be doing like groundskeeping, if you will, but they're not. And that's their rent instead of getting paid for that work, but they're just not doing it. And who's checking?
So Dan comes home and goes down to the basement, and he's like, hey, we need to talk.
I love it.
Hey, Herbert, we need to talk. And Herbert's like, eh, let me show you what I'm gonna do with my iguana real quick first. So this like very seemingly like unsafe way of like putting chloroform on a piece of not even chloroform, like something that kills somebody. It's this like
Yeah,
this fog that
this mysterious fog.
it's like in a bucket and you have to open it really quick, throw a rag in there and close it, and then have to open it real quick, then reach in and grab it, close it. With all of that like in the air, like they're breathing that, right? But then you put
Yeah.
it on this rag, or it's with a iguana's face with it. And then he just
Oh,
like, I know. So
poor little
rest
guy.
in peace. I didn't get the name of the iguana. I
Me
don't think
either.
there was one.
No.
Dog's name's Angel. Rest in
Hmm.
peace, Angel. We'll get there though. So so Dan's like, hey, we need to talk. And West is like, yeah, let me chloroform this iguana face.
Dan, Dan has like the tone and like facial expression of a man that's just been emotionally gutted, and he looks like he's like been in a relationship with this man for so long that he's just like fucking done. Like that's the tone that he's giving. Like I need to get out of this partnership that we have, whatever you want to call it. Um he looks like he's like just a shell of his former self. It's very sad. But he deserves it. I mean, he's an asshole, but
I was gonna say it's his own design, right?
yeah.
But so, well, Dan's like, hey, man, we need to figure out what's going on. Um, West is like, hey, let me talk to you about iguana juice, and we need to let some of the, you know, just take this juice from the sac of this iguana, put it in animator serum, and guess what? We can make anything reanimate. And he's like, trust me, this is going to be the breakthrough of science. We're going to be able to do some incredible shit. Let me show you my finger monster.
That thing.
I love this
It's
fucking
so
thing.
fun.
I love it. And I'm like,
It dies too soon.
it dies too soon. But I do like seeing its like blood and guts kind of spill out a bit when it gets smashed with
Yeah,
the
it's got
bug.
like green blood from the serum.
And this is like the first of like so many different examples of like West wanting to say, be like, oh, we're going to be doing this like wild shit. We're going to be, like doing some game changer kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, game changing kind of science. Um, but then it's almost like he just like gets bored or distracted, and it's like, let me see what happens.
Because
Let me just
nothing's
get
ever
on the
enough.
side. So he's like, let me put all
It's
these
always the
fingers
next
together.
thing.
It's almost as if like Herbert West is like the genesis of Sid from Toy Story,
Mm.
putting all those weird fucking fingers and eyeballs and shit
That
together.
is
And like
such a good comparison. You're on a roll.
that
Okay.
dude, that little kid freaks me out just as much
Oh my gosh,
as
that
fucking
little
Herbert West.
that doll baby head that's on the little like connects spider legs.
Do you
That
imagine little baby,
ugh,
preteen Dr. West doing that shit with his toys?
I can absolutely.
100%. He's like, let me spray some of my juice, my iguana reanimator juice on this finger monster. Let's put an eyeball on top and let's just see what happens. And like he will just, as we'll find out later on, he like creates these things and just like if they run off, he's like, yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Or
They
he'll
might
just
turn
put
up
them,
later.
yeah, as they all do
Yeah.
later on. All these fucking
Fucking crazy ass monsters.
creations that he fucking has. Like, oh my God. But so Dan's like, well, okay, I want to move out.
It's the timing on all of this is so good. The way that like Herbert's like so excited to like show him this little finger monster and just like, it comes alive. And Dan's like so used to weird shit happening that he's like,
Yeah,
okay, stay on course. Tell him what you need to tell him. Like, I need to move out.
I just love that. Like,
It's so good.
I just love look at my little fucking monster I made. Dan's just like, yeah, I want to move out. I'm good, man. And then, oh, but don't worry. West has ever the fucking abuser, ever the fucking manipulator,
Hmm.
right? He's like,
Such a good manipulator.
I know how to put you on my side. Opens up his little mini fridge of
Hmm.
organs, which I'm like, why do you need to put it in the fridge? Clearly, it was
Yeah,
fine
it
to
was
sit in the
fine on the
closet,
shelf.
whatever.
Good point.
Um, and says, hey, I've got your dead girlfriend's heart. Let's make a body. What do you think? And then Dan, he's like, of course, anything. He's like, here's Megan's heart. You could have just given him any piece of organ and just said like, oh yeah, this is Megan.
Yeah, he wouldn't have even known. It could have been anybody's heart, really. Like he just shows him a little tag. I'm like, you could have filled out that tag. We don't know. I just really enjoy that while they're having this very serious conversation about him having Meg's heart and like, them trying to figure it out, the little eyeball monsters just crawling around the lab, going on a little adventure, exploring his new life.
Just pitter pattering away
Yep.
and finds its way upstairs pretty
Oh
quickly.
yeah, it went
You know,
far.
I love when Herbert's explaining it to him and Dan, what does he call it? Um, morbid, you're just you're morbid doodling human
Yeah.
body parts. I love it. But then again, I'm just like, yeah, like where's like the rest of Meg? Like,
Yeah.
why did they just take her heart out? Like, why would they do? Like, I would get if someone was,
I mean,
I don't
obviously there's some really fucking nut stuff happening at this hospital. Like they're just doing all kinds of unhinged things. So if they don't care about missing body parts and then they've got like body parts that they've removed and just stuck on shelves, we're doing bat taxidermy and shit in the morgue. Like they don't care. They do not care.
and Dan, like said, ever the romantic. It's just like, oh dang, you got me. Go. All right,
All right.
let's
If
do
it's
it.
Meg's heart,
All right, maybe
as much as I am in love with Francesca and that dying girl at the hospital, I will I'll respond to this.
I know. Oh my God. He's like, yeah, no, I can have sex with this thing. And I like how that's all it takes for Herbert, um, is to be like, I'm making this for you. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna you're gonna love this thing. It's
Yeah.
gonna, you might even fuck this thing. I
You're gonna
don't know.
fuck that monster.
Dan's like, but what about the police?
Oh, it's so
And
good.
Wes is like, fuck the police. Who the fuck is
He's like, the police aren't gonna come here.
Ding dong. We've got Lieutenant
Yeah.
at the
Their
door.
their timing on things like that is really fun. Like this whole piece of them like in the lab for the first time, they just did a really good job at like that comedic timing. I love that he says the police will never come here and then the doorbell immediately rings. It's very sitcom.
Absolutely. We've got Lieutenant Chapman here at the door, and
Who's
he's just
also a
like
creep.
also very much a creep, which
Mm-hmm.
we'll find out. Definitely,
Yeah.
absolutely a creep. Um, hey, I mean, ask some of the right questions. He's just like, hey, you and Dr. Hill had a thing. What the fuck's up with that? Also heard you fuck around with dead tissue, and we also have
Mhm.
these zombies just walking around on one of the floors of our hospital. So maybe you want to talk about that a little bit, and then of course that's Jeffrey Combs. Like, I gave all my, I
Mhm.
gave my spiel to the police. Don't even fucking worry about it. They don't even worry. I talk to dickhead doctors all the time. Who even
Yeah.
cares? You know. I also love, he's like asking about that, asking about like all the body parts that have gone missing, and like, you have anything
Mhm.
to do with that? In the meantime, you've got Dan just like circling around the couch, trying to catch this dumb fucking little finger monster that's made its way upstairs.
It just wants to jump on the lieutenant.
Yeah, he's like, I just want to jump on this little man
Wants to
and just
cuddle him.
have a little cuddle him. It's soft, it's squishy. That's
It's
okay.
great. They're also like so suspicious. They remind me of in I Know What You Did Last Summer when Julie and Helen go visit Missy's house, like how clearly guilty and bad at lying they are. It was giving the same energy.
Let me think. At this point, I do know that the lieutenant does try to get downstairs into the basement to see what the
Hmm.
fuck's going on.
After
Um,
he kills our little friend, RIP to our eyeball finger friend.
so the lieutenant sticks around for a second and then, isn't getting the answers he wants, so he leaves. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Dr. Graves is just fuck it. He's like, hey, let's get loosey goosey. Let's just do some science here in the morgue and see what happens. I'm
Yeah,
just
why
gonna take
not?
this
What else is he gonna
reanimator
do?
serum, right? I'm gonna take this reanimator serum outside of you know, this police taped, evidence closet, and I'm just gonna fuck around with this bat and see what happens.
I know he didn't even sew him back up before he injected him. I'm like, you're just gonna bring it back to life open chested? Like, mm-mm.
Yeah.
That's cruel.
So like this whole thing is fucking bad. Where yeah, because of course he reanimates it like, and then I something just fucked me up about the sound of this bat just screaming in pain,
Yeah, he's in terrible pain.
and then is like flying around and does what an animal that is in fear does, and
Yeah.
starts attacking Dr. Graves' face. And then Dr. Graves, Jesus Christ, fucking is able to throw a map down on the table and then just starts slowly cutting off the wings of this bat. And
Yeah,
then
like,
as this
oh,
animatronic bat is still trying to move its shoulders and digits and shit, just screaming in pain. And you're like, oh my God, why do I feel so bad for this bat?
I
Like,
know.
it's
Like,
terrible.
and he cuts his wings off. I'm like, I probably would have just put him out of his misery, cut off his head. Oh,
Yeah, stick it right. Yeah, or you see it right in its head, or it's in its chest, or
yeah, just kill
something.
it. Don't, like, you've already seen that it works. Use it on something else that isn't a bat that will attack your face.
Right? Um, Herbert also makes his way back to the hospital during this time, and always on the search for more body parts, and
Mm-hmm.
asks that orderly to help him move this body.
Mm-hmm.
And like
Which I think implies maybe he's done this before.
maybe this orderly just doesn't seem to care. He's just like, I'm just here to,
Yeah, hopefully they're paying him or something.
yeah, right. Maybe well, like extra outside of his normal
Mm-hmm.
salary.
Yeah,
Mm, yeah, that's fair.
like a little side hustle. Why else
100%.
why else would you help him? I mean, he is a good manipulator, so maybe he
Right.
figured out a way to convince him.
I do like he brings a set of sunglasses to put on this cadaver. And him and Dan ultimately just like weekend at Bernie's this body out of the
Yeah, he does.
hospital. Um, even though like there's a part where like, is it
The dog bumps into the cadaver like in the wheelchair and knocks off the sunglasses. And of course, the head is just like hanging like
yeah, looking real dead.
lifeless, real dead.
But and then even people seem to notice, but they're just like, oh, oh no, no, don't even worry about that,
Yeah, just
whatever.
put those sunglasses back on.
And then this is when we have the reintroduction of Francesca, who's
Hmm.
made her way back to the States, and Dan sees her and he's like, oh my God, I'm in love again. Francesca, hello, let's get dinner. I
Yeah.
missed you. I love you. You know,
Yeah.
you've got, oh my gosh. So you have uh, Francesca that we're reintroduced to her.
Hmm.
They want to go get dinner. Well, she insists on cooking herself.
To
And
which you
then,
say no, because I have a spooky lab in my house with zombies, so we should definitely go out for dinner. But no, that's not the path we chose.
no, Dan doesn't care. Um, and then after he takes off, the lieutenant and approaches Francesca and says, hey, um, let me ask you some questions about fucking Dan Kane. What's going on over here? And
Hmm.
also, at this point, like even after he's Dr. Graves has cut off the wings of this bat, he's like it brings Dr. Hill's head back out. Like at this
Hmm.
point, like he's not like mind controlled by Dr. Hill, I don't think. He's just wanting to fuck around
No.
on his own like a fucking weirdo. Like Dr.
Oh, for
Graves is
sure.
now this is a movie about so many irresponsible doctors, and he is just yet another one. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, and it's really presumptuous of him to just like bring Dr. Hill back, not knowing if that's even what he wants. Like, he saw what happened to the bat. Like, I don't know. I think I would like mess with a couple more things before I just went straight for that man's head.
So he does inject the Re-Animator serum into Dr. Hill's head, and
Hmm.
to which brings him to life. Um, Dr. Graves also that orderly shows up and he's like, no, no, dude, you got to see this. His head's fucking talking. Um, but of course, Dr. Hill doesn't talk when the orderly's there. Um, because Dr. Hill's like, I'm
Of
not gonna
course
be
not.
your fucking puppet. If anything,
Yeah.
bro, you're my fucking puppet. I
Yeah.
do the
He's
puppeteering. I'm the mind
yeah.
control
He's
guy.
not gonna do tricks for him. Fuck that.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here. So, also, by the way, I want revenge against Dr. West. So, you're gonna help me do this, motherfucker.
Hmm.
Dr. Graves, at least at first, is like, I don't know if this is such a good idea. Maybe this is when I've gone maybe just a little bit too far. So like I said, they weekend at Bernie's that body out. And then you also have the lieutenant who talks to Francesca, just like this closet that has all this police evidence that everyone has access to. You don't even have to work at the hospital, like the lieutenant or Francesca, and they're able to get into whatever room they want, whatever
Why is he taking her in there? What was the purpose of that?
to just say, hey, your boyfriend's dead. I
Like,
just
this
want you
is
to
what he's
know
up
this.
to. But obviously, he doesn't have concrete proof. Otherwise, he'd be behind bars. So,
That's true. He does take Francesca up and shows her all of the reanimated corpses that are still like lumbering around from the first
mhm,
movie, and that first massacre at this hospital. And then we also learn that one of these reanimated bodies is the wife of
mhm.
the lieutenant. So this is where it gets a little personal, right?
That's the older woman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the kind of shortish white hair.
Hmm.
And he's like, hey, go see my wife in this room with all these reanimated corpses. And again, just to no one's surprise, uh, the wife attacks like, and starts trying to choke Francesca to death. Of
Yeah.
course, fucking Chapman's just like, ah, I've never seen her do this before. I don't know. I don't
He's like,
know.
whoops, whoopsie daisy.
Don't bring women around your wife, especially when you find
Yeah.
out that maybe it wasn't the fucking well, what they find out is like what initially caused the death of this wife.
He definitely killed her. He murdered her
100%, right?
for sure. Blunt force trauma.
So, of course, Francesca's like, what the fuck is all of this? What is going on? And then Lieutenant's just like, oh, by the way, your boyfriend's ex-girlfriend is definitely a part of all of this. So,
Kind of
I
weird.
I know. I think if you were like, I think if I were dating somebody and learned the circumstances of the death of my current partner's ex-partner. Um, I don't know. I I would maybe say, hey,
Let's go out to dinner in a public place.
let's actually go back to that restaurant in a public place. Don't even worry about
And
that.
then once you're like rolling into the cemetery to get to his house, you also might think again, like, that's strange.
Here we hop back. We've got this new body, and using that for parts. I forget how this body they took contributed to the bride's body.
Yeah, because he goes over everybody and she doesn't really fit the narrative. Oh, maybe she's the legs.
Maybe, right? Oh my God. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, we'll get there. But
Yeah.
um, they're putting these body parts together. Um, Dan's like,
He's like, I have a real girlfriend now, so
and then he's just like, I don't want to gamble, Megan's heart. And you're
hmm.
like, bro, this is far beyond any of this at this
Yeah.
point. Like, you you are a perpetrator in the death of your girlfriend, and
Yeah. Not only is she dead because of you, but now like you're pretending that you have some sort of moral compass.
not at all. Oh my gosh, that's
Mhm.
why Dan is even more
So
frustrating
selfish.
than West. You know,
Hmm.
West is like, yeah, man, you
Everybody's a science experiment.
hey, I know what I'm getting out of you. Whereas like Dan just is
Hmm.
so wishy-washy. It's awful.
He pretends to be a good person, whereas Herbert West is not.
So Francesca arrives. You also have Chapman, who's kind of staking out the place with a sandwich in his car outside.
Hmm.
They go to the kitchen. She's like, taste my sauce. And he does. And he's like, oh my God, I'm in love with you.
And this fucking sauce.
Come in here, girl. Let's go. Come in for a kiss. Come here for some wet smooching. And then
Some
and then
spaghetti
just
kisses.
yeah, okay, come in for some spaghetti kisses, girl. And then a hard cut to them having sex.
Of course.
probably in that same room, in that same bed he was in with Megan in the first one. And I'm like, you, man, are a lot. You're too much, man. And I just, if I were a woman, I would stay so fucking far away from him. I don't,
You'd think,
you'd think
but
that haircut.
this might be too soon because we haven't gotten to Francesca's future behaviors here. But let's not forget Megan's behaviors from the first one. Dan has got that good dick. They keep coming back for it. Like he's doing something extra special, extra special with that dick because they are willing to deal with zombies and fucking murderous roommates and dogs with human arms. Like that's some good dick.
Fuck, I can't argue it. I don't know. Um,
Right?
so West is back downstairs in the basement and he's working on a leg. And then he's like, got a loose arm. Let's fuck around and connect this arm to this leg and see what happens.
So gross.
And he's like, just, and it's not even like, I'm not even injecting this stuff anymore. I've just got it in a little cup and I'm just pouring it on
Yeah.
there. I'm like, let's pour it on the muscles and see what happens. And guess what happens, Natalie? It starts attacking him.
Yeah. It kicks
Like,
him in the face, which I think
like
is great.
kicks him in the face, which I love, and then reaches up and starts choking him too.
Yeah. So these are like very conscious body parts.
Yeah, but they're all angry and just want to
Yeah,
attack.
they're murder.
And then at this point, so you've got Francesca and Dan who are still in bed canoodling. Um,
Mhm.
the lieutenant has snuck back into the house.
Which feels illegal.
Feels very, but what can you do?
I mean, they are up to no good, but
He's sitting there waiting. West comes back upstairs, finds him, and he's like, "Hey, fucker, like, I need answers right now.
mhm.
I'm heading down there. I'm gonna see what the fuck's going on." Because West is like, "He can't
Bad
do that shit,
decision.
bro. This is our home." So she'd be like, "You rent. This is not you do not own this residence, like." But even then, I think you still need to get some sort of a permit or something, right? Um,
Anything.
so he goes down and then finds everything, all the body parts, and all the evidence of him trying to reanimate all this tissue. Um,
Hmm.
the lieutenant kind of puts two and two together, at least confirms his initial suspicions that
Yeah.
his wife, who was dead, that is now reanimated, it's due to him. Like he had something to
Hmm.
do with it. To which, Herbert West does call out, that it's like I had nothing to do with much. Oh,
I love that he like calls him out for that. That whole exchange is really good.
feel like, all those like bruises and contusions and shit. Like,
Hmm.
let's be real, motherfucker. You fucking did this. And of course, that leads to a good old fashioned shovel fight, where the lieutenant grabs a shovel and they just start fucking going. Doesn't make it too far because, he still has that. I keep calling it like chloroform rag, but like
Yeah.
whatever that gas
Yeah,
is that
whatever
he
that
puts on it.
weird substance is. This is a perfect example of why you should get permission to actually search a place and bring a whole team because when you discover things by yourself, you're gonna get killed. Like, you're gonna get murdered for sure.
Yeah. I love He's downstairs and he's like, "What's going on?" Um, so he kills the lieutenant's dead, and then of course he's like, "Oh, if anything, he's consistent, Dr. West, because he's like, well, we got a fresh body,
Yeah,
might as
it's
well
like
reanimate it and
test
just
it
see what
out.
happens."
Yeah.
What does he say? He's like, "Oh, it's our opportunity for a test,"
Yeah.
and and Dan's
He's so
like, "God damn
excited.
it, yeah, I love it." um, so they're like, "Let's go for it. Let's reanimate him and see what happens." And guess what happens?
The same thing.
The same thing. He starts
Yeah.
getting angry and attacking people. This
Yeah.
time he's a little more
A little more human.
and
Hmm.
aware because one of the first things he says is that you killed me.
Hmm.
And I love the look on Jeffrey Combs' face, his like oopsie face.
Yeah.
When he's like, you killed me. And then he looks to Dan, Dan looks to him, and he just has this like, Mimi. And he's like, what does he say though? He's like, he's a wife beater, Dad. Use the gun.
Yeah.
Which, hey, honestly, look,
There you
if
go.
you're a fucking
Kill him
wife beater,
twice.
fuck you, man. Like, hey, I'm not disagreeing necessarily. I do love how he's a wife beater, Dad. Use the gun. Kill him. Kill him. It's like almost like he's like fucking Palpatine talking to Anakin. Listen to me. I'm the only one who loves you. This very manipulative
Yeah.
relationship and dance. Like, I don't know what to do. They get in this fight. Um, now, but Chapman is able to escape
Yeah.
eventually. He gets his
He's
arm
much
cut off.
smarter than the other reanimated corpses for sure. I wonder if that's because of the iguana juice, right? Like it gave it that extra edge.
So he gets his arm cut off, but also knows to put it over fire, cauterize it.
Yeah.
Um, and goes upstairs. He makes it upstairs and he's just like, oh, I'm pretty tired. And I need to sit down. And Francesca, the fucking dog,
God.
come out. She's like, what the fuck is going on? Um, rest in peace, Angel. Angel knew that something was not going right.
Yeah, Angel got fucked up. Why did he have to kill that dog?
Yeah, like ripped off like one of the legs and threw it across
Yeah,
the room.
seems unnecessary.
Because I think he's like, you could tell he's still battling between that human and unhuman form, like he's,
Yeah, and they always seem to carry a certain level of rage. So with the dog barking at him, he just went for it.
yeah. But despite all the lieutenant's rage, he will not be a rat in a cage and made his way out of the
Mhm.
door. So he escapes, takes off.
Yep.
The dog is dead. Rest in peace, Angel. Francesca is just sobbing
Oh,
uncontrollably.
she's a
Like,
mess.
what the fuck is going on?
Hmm.
They come upstairs. I love how quickly Dr. West is like, ooh, fresh body. Look at this dog. And just goes and picks up the dog. He's like, oh, I'm going to take this. You need to calm
Yeah.
down, lady.
He's
What
like,
is going on with you?
he says she's hysterical. He's like, I'm gonna take this dog, see what I can attach to this missing limb, see if I can't
Yeah.
whip something up real quick.
So, like, Dan's trying to console her. We end up, is it at this point where, like,
They
we
fall
just go
asleep on the
back to,
couch.
do they? And then,
Yeah, they fall asleep on the couch.
he's back in the basement and he, and again, he just looks like, I think he just gets bored. He's like, I've got a lull in the plot.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. No one's coming
What
here to
else?
bug me.
What else could I do?
He just looks around and he looks at the table and sees the dog and sees an arm and he's like, huh, yeah, let's
God,
fuck around. Let's find out. I don't
horrifying.
know. Yeah.
I do love it, but it is fucking horrifying.
Francesca wakes up, makes her way downstairs, and is like, what the and then knocks on the door and into
Yeah,
the
she hears
fucking,
the dog barking.
right, right. She goes down and West answers the door. He's like, get the fuck away. Don't worry. Don't even worry. We're not even doing anything. Like, don't come in here. Don't worry your dumb little face. And she sees her dog fuck up. And then you find out that this dog just has like a fucking human arm just attached to the side of it.
I love that it like reaches for her.
I love that very much.
Oh,
Like doing like a shake trick.
yes. Ew.
Um,
I don't like that at all.
you thought she was hysterical then.
Oh. Ooh.
Oh, more so, she is like, what the fuck? Then Dan comes down. He's like, I'm going to explain, but he never explains. Um, and she's like, you're a fucking freak. You're all
Mhm.
fucking wild. I want nothing to do with any of you. She fucking bails and runs
Mhm.
out. I love
Says that now.
and then I just love how fucking she goes, Dan's upset. Being like, oh. this was the love of my life. Well, what I'm gonna do, and then it's just West is like, geez, better off without her,
I love that he says that.
huh?
He
It's
says,
too much.
you're better off without her. But he also is like, why did you bring her here? Like, Dan, why the fuck would you bring her there? Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, the reason why he didn't want to go out to dinner and he was like, oh, you want to cook for me? I'm definitely getting laid. I'm gonna risk her finding this fucking reanimating lab just for that. That's what it
Yeah.
was. Now all the pieces are coming together.
Ooh,
Oh, that, that was just my natural wit.
thank you. I appreciate it as always. So we're at the next day at the hospital,
Hmm.
and Dan and Herbert are both there. Dan's like, "What are we doing?" And Herbert's like, "Oh, dude, we're so close. We just we just need to find a head. Don't worry. Every trust me. Trust me. If you've learned anything from the last movie and a half, trust me. Like,
They'll find
we
one.
just need this one thing, then we're gonna be able to unlock
Hmm.
some huge shit. We're gonna do some Frankenstein type of shit."
It's always one more thing.
And Dan's just like, it
Yeah.
never takes much to convince Dan. He's just like, what's going on? So Dan then goes and visits Gloria, if you remember
Hmm.
Gloria. She's wait, it doesn't say, I don't know if I remember if they say exactly what she's dying from, but
They don't.
only her head is good. Everything else is
Hmm.
just bugs. You know what I mean? So he goes and visits Gloria. Um, he is I think he doesn't realize she's dead. But oh God, what does he say to her? Um, it helps me to think of Meg when I think like it helps me to think of Meg when I'm with you, or it helps me to
Yeah, that he saved her.
when she was
Like,
living,
yeah.
you know. But and it's just like that's not professional in any way whatsoever.
Yeah. Also, like, does she know who Meg is? Have you had conversations with her about your past lovers? Like, what is this patient doctor relationship that's happening here? Very inappropriate.
So if I remember correctly, Dan doesn't realize that she's dead.
Well, no, she's alive for some of it, and then she dies and he doesn't realize, and the machine like flatlines, and that's when he realizes she's dead and
He's
that
a
he's
great
a terrible
doctor.
doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so of course, they're trying to save her. You bring in a bunch of the nurses. Um, Also, of course, Dr. West comes in. He's like, "Oh, hey,
What's going on here?
oh yeah, we gotta save this person." Yep, yep. Here, let me just start cutting into her chest and see what happens.
Yeah.
Uh,
I wasn't sure what the motivation behind that was.
yeah, literally, like he cuts open her chest, and he just like puts his hands and starts digging around. He's like, "Ah, no, I think we need to call it." Mixed it up a little bit in there, scooped out some jelly. I don't know. It looks like she's dead. I don't know what we can do. I'm covered in blood. We are all covered in so much blood now. Fucking Dan's got it all over his face and
He's like on the
shit.
floor, just
Yeah.
traumatized.
Also, the manipulator, yet caretaker, not really. Um, West is like, hey, go home. Go home. You're
Yeah.
stressed. Don't even worry. Just go home.
Let me handle this situation.
Trust me, I'm the only one you can trust, and I love you. I'm here for you too. Meanwhile, Dr. Graves is just having a hell of a time down there
Oh
in this
God.
morgue. I would prefer him drinking straight from the bottle because he's like pouring like liquor into like beakers and shit. And like,
Yeah, that doesn't, he's just not great with like sanitation, health codes, like any of that.
no. And it seems like he's having a real hard time arguing with the severed head of Dr. Hill, who
Hmm.
is, I don't know if it's like the mind control or something that he's battling. So I thought he could only mind control like dead or reanimated.
No, it's only dead. It's only dead like things and people that he can control. I think he's just trying to manipulate Graves.
Right. And Graves is like, I'm not having this. I'm putting you in the trash can.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
does.
He's like, yeah, right. Which doesn't feel like a very final way to get rid of him. Like I feel like maybe that's what the crematory would be good for.
I mean, the janitors don't come through until probably after hours, right?
Yeah.
So you're thinking you've got quite a bit of time before that. And then
Hmm.
what? They take it down to the trash compactor.
Someone might notice you threw away a head. Like, you can't just stick a head in a fucking trash can.
But clearly,
Absolutely not.
clearly though, limbs have been disappearing left and right, and no one seems to care.
That's true, but they weren't getting thrown in a trash can. Like the janitor didn't have a chance to find them.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, things that hospital janitors find in trash cans.
Oof, that's gotta be rough. It's gotta be a rough job. Let us know if you're a hospital janitor.
Again, I want to say Herbert is using the orderly to help get rid of Gloria's body.
Hmm.
Uh,
But
and
you
then the
skipped one of my
orderly,
favorite parts.
which part?
The nurse is like gazing into the room, like just looking really sad and like depressed and grieving. And Herbert Wetch just walks up to the blinds and just closes them real quick. He's just like, ugh, like, mind your business. I love that.
I love how it's not even like, I don't want you to see me cutting off this person's head and figuring out some alternate whatever with the body. It's, oh, I don't like whatever you're doing. You're
Yeah, he's
affecting
like,
me.
ugh, sadness. Ugh,
Oh, no, thank you. No, no time for this.
human emotion.
He does get access to Gloria's,
Mhm.
and we get back to the basement, and Dan's there with him, and he's like, "Hey, guess what, buddy?
I got something for you.
I got something for you. I heard you said you wanted a pretty Frankenstein head. Got you the prettiest one I could find." It just reveals
And
Gloria's
it's
head.
fresh.
Yeah, and it's fresh. I hear you like fresh head. So here's Gloria. And Dan, of course, is like, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh my God." But then like very quickly it's just like, no, I'm on board with this though. And I think I'd love it. I think I might.
Yeah, but now you've got two girlfriends in one at
Yeah.
this point. Yeah.
And I think this is when Herbert starts like he starts introducing all of the contributors to this body.
Yeah. And that body is looking like exposed. Like you can see tendons and like just things cut open. And I'm like, how do we like I guess you could live with those open wounds because of this serum.
I guess.
It just feels like it would be like uncomfortable if nothing else.
Ugh, you would just get dirty, you know.
Ugh. Yeah,
All
no,
those
I don't want to think
open.
about dirt on that open hand. Gross.
No, thank you. But Herbert West is like, we've done it, man. Like I've created the perfect lover for you. Let
Hmm.
me walk you through from from toe to head. We've got the feet of a ballerina. We've got
Hmm.
we've got a sex worker's legs. You know how many legs? You know how many people those legs been wrapped around?
I love that he says that. Yeah, you're like, why is that relevant? Or a selling point even. Like what?
Well, and then what makes even less sense is you've got a lawyer's hand and also a
Yeah.
sculptor's hand. So you got a sculptor's right hand and a lawyer's left hand. But
You've got an
apparently,
artistic hand and a practical hand.
and then of course you've got Gloria's head.
Hmm.
You've got Meg's heart.
Hmm.
I don't know whose chest that is. And
And
torso.
the womb of a virgin.
Oh, right, right,
You're
right. Oh
forgetting
my
the
God.
best part. Like,
It's so
why
awful. He
did
goes,
why?
the womb of a
Why?
virgin who who never got to enjoy real pleasure or whatever the fuck he says. And
Yeah,
you're like,
like
what the
life's
fuck?
physical pleasures or something. And you're like, I don't know that she will now either.
Especially because he even says later that he has more power over creating life than any womb. would ever
I love that. I know. I wrote that line down.
happen. Especially the way he says it to her. Like the way he
Yeah.
like looks her up and down.
Yeah. Oh, he fucking hates women like so much.
And it's I think he's just an I would say just an asexual
Yeah.
character. He
All
has
he cares
no
about is these science experiments. Like that's it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But Dan is also just fucking crazy because Dan's like, okay, I'm on board. Let's let's
Yeah.
I want to do it. Let me inject the serum right into this thing's fucking heart.
Yeah. I kind of thought at one point, the first time that I watched it, that maybe he was like, let me do it because he was going to like sabotage it or something and like have a change of heart. But no, he's fully fucking bought in. Like, I want to be the one.
I'm back, baby. Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's inject
Let's
this right with.
raise this bitch from the dead.
I love this. Um, at this point, like, so we're always going back and forth between the house and the hospital. So we're
Yeah.
back at the hospital here.
At which point
Um,
I kind of forgot they were in the movie. Like, because there's like a big break
mhm.
of like time and a lot happening in between the last time you see Graves and Hill. So I legitimately forgot that they were like a part of things.
Graves is has kind of, you know, not like locked himself in a little bit in that closet, kind of, you know, but he does realize that the head of Dr. Hill is gone and not in that trash can anymore.
Oh, what a
Um,
nightmare.
and then gets affronted by the reanimated lieutenant,
Hmm.
who now has a personal, who, much like Hill, both have a personal score to settle with Dr. West. Uh,
Hmm.
Now that the lieutenant is undead, he is now susceptible, I believe, to the mind control of Herbert. It's hard to tell whether he's under mind control or he, because he also has his own motivation to
I
go
think he
after Herbert.
has, I think it can be both. Like he has his own motivation, and then Hill is like pushing him to do more specific things in between.
Give me those bat wings over there.
Yeah, they're very much can't be the first body part or fucking creature that you see and just slap it
Yeah,
on.
don't get me wrong. Don't, sew me to some other cadaver that you have.
Yeah,
Clearly you
or
have
look in
people
that
that,
closet full of body parts. We could put together a whole body.
yeah, no, I'm not good. I'm not pushy. Don't even worry about me. I just want a couple little bat wings just sewn to the
The
side of my head.
little
Ah,
floppy wings.
ah! And I love Dr. Hill with these bat wings. It's my favorite part of the movie. I laugh every single time. I
It's
can't get enough
so
of it.
outrageous.
It's so good. I love it. Geez, I think at this point, then they do that and then lock Graves in.
Hmm.
So I think this might be the last we see of Graves. I'm not sure.
I think
Um,
so.
you also have Francesca at the hospital, who's realizing something's not clearly now realizing something's not right. Um,
Yeah.
Tries to call Dan. Dan doesn't answer,
Yeah,
and then
she has his fucking sweater, his like sweater that she was wearing when she ran off. And I'm like, there it is. She's like, oh, I know that that was a really weird situation with my dog having a fucking human arm, but I gotta return this sweater. Just be like, I totally forgot to give this back to you. Because that dick, you would not be running up into that hospital looking for him after your dog was fucking murdered, reanimated, and had a human arm.
just leave,
That's what I'm
just leave.
saying.
Um, so she gets attacked by Chapman, is able to escape. Uh, Graves is locked in. I think at this point, then you see that like literally like everyone else is dead in this hospital,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um,
Because the doctors suck.
and then everyone starts making their way to Dan's house
Mm-hmm.
for this climax.
And he's wearing his best pirate blouse too. This is when he has like that wardrobe changed. I'm like, that does not seem like a safe blouse to wear for a surgical procedure.
But he's also got like the jeans and sneakers of like he kind of like a Marty McFly situation going on. But yeah, definitely with that pirate blouse.
It's very blousy. Yeah.
And they inject into again, like inject into Meg's heart, to try to bring this bride back to life. It's taking a little longer than they expect.
It takes a lot longer than everything else. I'd be pretty worried.
Dan starts to say, like, hey, it smells like rats. And Herbert then turns around and yells at the rats, saying, "Get out of here, you little buggers." Which I think he's not yelling at the rats, he's yelling at like all of those reanimated things that he's been like locked up, like, or that he's been like
Yeah, just throwing into the walls.
barricaded into the wall. Yeah.
Yeah. Like maybe it's, oh, doesn't he say at one point that they share a wall with like a mausoleum?
Yeah.
So he's probably just like putting them into the mausoleum so they're locked in from the door of the outside of the mausoleum because you can't get in there easily, and then just bricks it back up.
So nothing happens. They're waiting. And then the doorbell rings. Clearly, he opens the door and it's just a box just sitting there, like in this wooden, just sitting there on the front door.
Mm-mm.
And then, of course, he's like, well, clearly we have to bring this inside.
Yeah.
Nothing to worry about, probably, right?
You're a straight up villain, bro. Like, how many enemies do you have that would send you a suspicious box? You don't just bring that shit into the house, knowing all the wrongs you've done? Absolutely not.
Oh, I forgot the actual scene where they're injecting into this. I like that when they're injecting the serum into the heart. Um, I like that Dan's just like, let me get a good grip on this boob as I uh,
That's
as
what
I
he's
inject.
using for to balance himself. Is just get a little titty grab.
Yeah, let me grab a hold of this. Let me grab a hold of this boob as I inject the serum into my dead girlfriend's heart. Nothing weird about this. Um, so West is like, all right, totally normal wooden crate outside my front door. Let's bring it
Hmm.
inside. Don't worry about it. And then, yeah, pretty immediately he opens that box and the bat hill starts
Yeah.
flapping out.
Oh my God, I love it.
Especially because he's always like chuckling and laughing the whole time as he's flying it out,
Yeah.
like really having like a hoot.
Oh, he's having a great time. I mean, you have to assume like the element of surprise. Like he may have like expected his head being in there after seeing him at the morgue, but not his head with bat wings. You would never see that coming.
Um, Downstairs, our bride wakes up,
Hmm.
and is like not breathing very well. His first thing is like, let me just start giving it mouth to mouth. Um, the second it starts like waking up and like moving
Yeah.
around and steps out, he's just like, oh
It's like,
my God.
oh, girl.
Oh, he like drops to his knees. You're
Yeah.
alive. You're alive.
And of course, she has curly hair when she wakes up. She had completely straight hair before, but now that she's a fucking zombie bride, of course, curly hair.
You also, I think, at the same time, you've got Francesca, who's made her way over there. She is trying to make her way inside while escaping the these reanimated zombies that have broken out and have followed Bill that way, including the lieutenant, his wife. This was kind of fun because, like, the lieutenant, the undead lieutenant, is like attacking Francesca.
And he's like feeling her up with his little like hand stub
Well, he puts his little
situation.
hand stump like in her, tries to put in her mouth. I'm like,
Well,
oh
he was
my
like
God,
feeling on her breasts and then like goes in her. I was like, you couldn't get past this movie without like a little bit of sexual assault. You know, they
right?
had to throw in like a little bit. But she didn't she bite it that first time?
I think so. Ugh.
Ugh.
But what I like is that like the wife of the lieutenant like is also like comes and like attacks Francesca, but then also is like, fuck you, Chapman. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
get off
you
this girl.
well because I think she recognizes you killed,
Mm-hmm.
so she is attacking him and then ends up like
Perfect.
attacking him later on too. So I like all of
It's
that
fun.
chaos that's going on. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so West is inside with a handgun looking for Dr. Hill, who's just flapping around, laughing, just having just having a fucking hoot. Um,
I love that all of that is happening upstairs while Dan is just falling in love with his zombie bride. When keep in mind he has a perfectly good living girlfriend who's willing to accept him after all that bullshit with the dog. So that's wild.
And for all we know, still is like accepting of him up for this movie because we never really find out like what happens with the two of them,
No.
or at least in this movie. So West, like I said, is looking for the Dr. Hill head with the bat wings. Um, Dan brings the bride upstairs and he's like, "Hey, we did it. She's alive. Check this shit out." That
Hmm.
distracts Dr. Hill, or sorry, that distracts West. Dr. Hill is flapping around, causing his fucking chaos and shit. Um, Francesca also makes her way inside and is like, "What the fuck is this?"
Came all the way back to Zombieville for that dick too.
Yeah.
She
And
would have been safe.
and then at this point, this is when all of the hospital zombies start breaking in through the windows and
Hmm.
attacking. Um, and everyone just kind of scrambles and ends up
Yeah.
making their way downstairs back to the basement. This is when I think like Francesca finally is like, "Is this what you're doing?" You know?
Yeah, well, because she sees the bride for the first time
Right.
and is like, y'all are just creating ladies down here?
And then this is when West gives his like Frankenstein speech where
Mm.
he's like, I'm too impatient for your God. I am I love like again, he gives her the fucking like up down look when he's just like, "I created more life than any womb do."
He says, I've created what no man's mind or woman's womb could ever achieve.
Um,
And he looks right at her, like where her uterus is when he says woman's womb.
Dan is just in complete fucking like hypnosis at this point. He is just like just in
He's a
awe, just
fucking mess.
following around this bride wherever she goes. It's just like, oh, everybody else is this and this.
Hmm.
Francesca is just like, "What the fuck are you doing? This is Mega's dead. There
Yeah.
is none of this is alive. This is all just this fucked up monster. To which, hey, makes that bride a little upset.
Oh, yeah. She's ready to throw down.
Yeah. Now, to Grammy, don't get me wrong, Francesca like grabs onto the bride and kind of like pushes her to the side, which makes her
Hmm.
very angry. And they start fighting. And I just like how like as they're like fighting, West goes to Dan and she's like, "Oh man, there's no way you're gonna win this one." To which I'm like, which one is his girlfriend at this
No,
point?
he says, your girl doesn't stand a chance. Our girl is superior.
Which one's your girl at this point? Because you seem to,
Francesca.
well, but you seem to fall in love with any of them at this point, so it doesn't matter.
Well, that's why
But
he goes from your girl to our girl because
right.
both are Dan's girls. And technically we're working with three girls right now because we've got Meg's heart, Gloria's head, and Francesca.
And again, it's like Dan goes from being like, "I'm in love and I am like under your fucking spell and shit," to then just being like, "I reject you. I don't want your body." Or like, and
Yeah, that's so mean that he says I don't want your body.
he says, yeah, it's such a mean way. And like,
Mhm.
I feel bad for this bride. Because
Yeah.
what, this was not her fucking
Mm-mm.
choice, any of this to be
Hell
brought back
no.
to life. And God, I just, Dan needs to rot fucking hell for what he did to poor Meg. Between
Oh,
the first movie and this one, he is an
yeah, he's
absolute monster.
just trash.
It's almost I'm just super sad in this moment where like the bride, who this actress giving her all, I
Oh, she's
is
great. She's so good.
she's so good, and she's like, "Is this what you want?" Like, and then and starts ripping out Megan's heart out of her own body.
Well, first she is like screaming and crying and she says, "What do you want?" And that really like, damn, that feels like the female experience right there. Like she's fucking just screaming like, "What the fuck do you want from me?" Then she starts ripping out the heart, which is like, oh, so much worse because you know she can live for a little bit without it.
At this point, you also have keep on the zombies, but the reanimated corpses that have like started to kind of breaking their way through the doors
Oh, which is
downstairs.
great. Yeah.
All of
When
this
they're
is
coming.
great. Maybe outside of Jeffrey Combs, the best
Hmm.
acting in the movie is this woman playing the bride,
Oh, yeah.
and this and the look on her face, just this like just like it is.
She's laughing and crying at the same time at one moment, too.
And then the visual effect of her limbs just rejecting themselves and her
Hmm.
body tearing itself from itself, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like ripping itself apart.
And then Jeffrey Combs is like, tissue rejection.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hate to see it. All of this works for me. Uh,
The practical effects on her body, like tearing apart and her head, like falling off backwards, is really, really cool.
oh yeah, yeah. At this point, you also have, well, this is when the rest of Herbert West's creations that he's just been like just shoving into the walls and then this mausoleum.
Oh my God. There's so many weird, fun things to look at.
Oh my God. Do you have a favorite?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I still feel like I haven't even fully processed all of them.
My
Who's your
personal
favorite?
favorite is the where it's like the woman that like turns around and it's like the other like zombie kind of like man like so like it's a face on both sides of the head,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Gross.
you know, because I think and then she goes, that was a really effective moment where she like turns and then flips and you see the other body and she attacks Francesca. I thought that was
Hmm.
really cool. uh that was one that stood out to me. And then there was like one that like looked kind of like a male female version of dog. Do you remember Cat Dog?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So it was like, the arms and the torso and the head of a man connected to the arms and torso of a woman facing the other way, and then they just kind of
That's the
walked
one that
around
I
together.
remember. That's the one that sticks in my mind the most,
Mm.
but I don't know if it's my favorite. But it was the first one that I thought of.
So all of this chaos is happening. All of these creations are coming out and attacking West. The bat winged hill is flying around, just cackling. They're like,
Mhm.
fuckers.
The best
I got
part, I think the best part of all of this is like everybody's a villain except for Francesca.
except for Francesca. Yes,
Yeah.
everybody is the worst, and everyone is just doing harm,
Yeah.
except for
Horrible.
Francesca. And but her and Dan are able to escape, as you see, like, the foundations are kind of falling apart, and everything's kind of falling in on itself.
Hmm.
Um, and Dan and Francesca, though, are able to escape, whereas um, Dr. West, as well as all the other creation stuff, are all being covered in shit. So you're left to assume that maybe they were crushed or killed
Hmm.
in the aftermath of all of this. And
Yeah.
then
Kind
you
of
have
left
got
for
Dan,
dead.
yeah, and then you've got Dan and Francesca that um very fitting in the theme of the movie. Um, break out through the ground in a graveyard. We did it. We made it out. Will you still be my girlfriend?
Yeah, they're just kind of like hugging. And I'm like, I'd be like, okay, I've had enough. We're done.
We're done. I'm going back to wherever I am from. I think she's like Italian or
He's
something. Or
Italian. Yeah.
right. So, oh, she's just like, let me make you pasta.
Yeah.
This and this and this. You've got this. They're in their embrace. And you also see under the rubble Dr. Hill still cackling and smiling.
Still,
He's still
still
alive,
going strong.
still going strong. And then you also cut to the removed heart of Megan that's still
Mhm.
beating.
But it slows down and stops. It stops. So they're like saying like she's done. Unless we inject that shit again.
Yeah. And that's it. That's the end of
That's
her
it.
movie.
Yeah.
That's it. Bride of Re-Animator. Is there anything else that we left out, like talking through this?
I don't think so. So you have Herbert West presumed dead under rubble with all his creatures. Dr. Hill's good to go.
Wasn't he presumed dead at the end of the first one too?
Think so. I don't remember that.
Like Dan and Barbara Crampton escape, even though Barbara Crampton does die like later
Oh,
on.
he
But
like,
like,
because he's like, go, like, run, like, and he's just getting attacked by all the zombies.
right.
But I mean, he could have made it out of there.
Well, clearly he did because he's in the second
Obviously,
one.
he did. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. But this time he did not sacrifice himself. So,
no.
mhm. Oof.
Um, are there some good taglines for this one?
Good taglines might be a stretch.
Okay.
You ready? We've got three. We've only got three, which is great. I think the first one had three as well. Him. This one's a mouthful. The creator of the original cult injects new life into body parts other films cannot reach. It's a scream.
Whoa. Okay.
That's all
So
one. That is all one tagline.
the it's just something a cult leader?
The creator of the original cult injects new life into body parts other films cannot reach. It's a scream. So I think they're talking about like a cult classic. Like they're
Right.
claiming that. I don't know that you could claim that 5 years in.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's a long one. All right. This one is what I think is on most of the movie posters. Date, mate, reanimate. It's
Mm,
okay.
yeah. I
We
mean,
don't do everything in that order. I
in
don't
that
know.
order. But
Yeah.
oh, I always love a good rhyming scheme.
Yeah, we like
Fine,
a
sure.
good rhyme. This one's my personal favorite, so I saved it for last. Till death do us part.
That's great. I like
That
that.
one's a good one. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that's perfect for it's simple, short, cute. We love it.
Love it.
Easy taglines.
Who scores? Who wants to go first?
Do you want to know do you remember your boo score for Reanimator?
Never. Can you tell me what it is?
Yes, we both gave Reanimator 3.5 boos.
Dang. Okay. All right.
So that's pretty solid. So I was really on the fence about like where this one would land. Do you want me to go first?
Unless you'd like me to.
Mm, yeah, you go first. Go ahead.
Okay. I do like the first one better, so it is going to be lower.
I'm gonna write down mine.
I mean, this is still a fun movie. Comparing it to the similar movies of its ilk, of course, like the first Re-Animator and then also From Beyond. I like both of those movies better than this one, but this one is
Mm-hmm.
still a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I I really want to say I mean this with love when I give it a 2.5. Um,
Ooh.
I think it's a fun movie. It's great. It's so watchable. It's so good. But are there better examples of this? Yes, there's plenty. Like this would not be in the top five body horror movies I would recommend to somebody.
No.
I would include the first one probably, and maybe
But
even I love From Beyond,
body horror is so different, like through different decades too.
or even just sci-fi horror. I wouldn't
Okay.
put this there either. But I do think it's a commendable sequel, and I think that it is enjoyable. I think you do get Jeffrey Combs hamming it up even more in this one than he
Mhm.
does in the first one. Um, Curious to see because the next one comes out like 13 years after this,
Yeah.
Beyond
Yeah.
Re-Animator. So, uh, eh, trust me, all it's a matter of not ifs, it's
Yeah.
whether.
Well, we're definitely gonna we haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
So that
So I don't know. I feel pretty comfortable with 2.5. I mean, I think it's a fun movie. I don't know if I would go out of my way to recommend this specifically, but if someone said, "Hey, we're gonna watch Bride of Reanimator," I'd say like,
I'd be like, yeah, it's a good time.
There's a lot of fun to have in this one. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, solid 2.5. How about you?
Okay. I'm actually surprised that you were that low, but that's I know 2.5 isn't too bad. Okay, so I agree. I think I do like the first one better, but I also agree that Jeffrey Combs is so good in this one. Like he gets a whole half a boo just for like his like little moments that he has, maybe even a full boo. I don't know.
Not
But
to knock, also, I think Bruce Abbott also kind of
they're every no,
goes
I
a
think
little
they're all
extra.
yeah, he's great too. Yeah. He definitely does a good job, especially because like Dan doesn't have that much to do other than just be like swooning over every fucking female that is presented in his face. So he does a lot with a little. Um, I'm gonna give it 3 boos, so just below Re-Animator and equal with From Beyond, because I'd say I like both about the same. And yeah, I agree. I wouldn't recommend this movie to just anyone, but I would recommend Re-Animator. So I'd say like if people were into that sort of thing, if they were like, oh, I really like campy 80s type horror, I'd be like, oh, this feels like it's from the 80s, even though it's from 1991. Watch this. Um, yeah, so I'm gonna give it a solid 3 boos.
Love that. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
No, I think this movie is a really good time. I didn't expect it the first time we watched it. I did not expect it to be as fun as it was. Like I was expecting a steep decline. So I was happy that it was super fun to watch.
Yeah, I don't agree with the critic reviews that give this like a much worse score than the first one.
Yeah, they're wild.
Still commendable. It's fun,
Yeah.
and I do think that there are some really fun effects, and the humor is still intact, very much
Hmm.
so. Maybe it's of course not as novel as the first one because the first one's going to be the first one, right?
Yeah.
So I hear you.
Yeah. Good
So
stuff.
hell yeah. So yeah, dude, if y'all are bored, check out Magic Re-Animator. At least, please, if you've listened, well, one, if you listened to this so far, then I hope that you have.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Or
talk about
revisit it
watch it.
if you listened to this and hadn't watched it for a while.
Yeah. All right. Hell yeah, everybody. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you as always. And dang, just really happy to continue just going through October and spooky season with
Yeah.
y'all. So, hell yeah. I know the next few movies are going to be definitely more Halloween spooky centric. Um,
Yeah. It's gonna be a good month.
hell yeah. Take care, everybody. Three, two, one, ghost.
Thanks for listening to our episode on Bride of Re-Animator. If you've been enjoying our podcast, subscribe and leave us a killer review on whichever platform you choose to listen. You can find us on Instagram at 321ghostpod and give us a follow. We're very active on Instagram and would love to hear from you. You can shoot an email to 321ghostpod@gmail.com to share any thoughts, questions, or recommend a movie you'd like to hear us chat about. Next week, we're back to talking horror comedy with Stephen Brill's Hubie Halloween. Thanks again for listening, and remember, you can get away with damn near anything when you got that good dick. 3, 2, 1, ghost.